Welcome to the Other Green Infrastructure Electric Charging Stations in the Planning Process. Today we have two presenters, myself, Amina Hassan, an urban planner at WXY Architecture and Urban Design, and Brian Roy, the project team lead and principal engineer of Sustainable Transportation Solutions commercial sector at Energetics Incorporated. Today's webinar has multiple goals to provide information on EVs and charging stations so that participants are well versed and informed to make decisions and recommendations, to facilitate EV charging station installations in your own municipalities and towns, and to share relevant best practices and case studies from across New York State. We'll start by giving an introduction to electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging. Then we'll go into planner and planning board actions, specific actions that planners can take in their municipalities. Then we'll discuss planning and policy tools to facilitate and promote electric charging, and then other options for promoting electric charging. Just as a note, this resource was developed with funding from New York State Energy Research and Development Authority and will be available as a PDF document. There are several symbols that you'll notice throughout our presentation that indicate that there are links to external websites, links to external PDFs located online, and then embedded PDF documents that will allow you to go into each topic in more detail. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Brian, who's going to introduce and give an overview of electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging.
Great, thank you very much, Amina. So electric vehicles are a technology that New York State is really trying to promote. One of the reasons is because they do contribute to less greenhouse gas emissions, which is a major implication to our health, and we certainly want to do what we can to reduce those. So New York State sees that electric vehicles is a vital element in the transportation sector to reducing greenhouse gases. Those environmental benefits are exemplified in New York State because of how we create our electricity that's sourced by these. There's many low carbon sources such as hydro, nuclear, wind, and solar. The vehicle's electric motors are very efficient, almost 3 times as much as a gasoline engine. So that as well helps us use the amount of energy in it to the fullest extent possible. Because of these opportunities to create low carbon electricity in New York State and being so fuel efficient, the electric vehicle will be less expensive to operate. It's about 1/3 of the cost to operate as a typical conventional internal combustion engine using gasoline. And you'll notice on the bottom, here are links again to resources to learn more about these topics as you go through and are navigating this resource on your own. Electric vehicles, there's 2 types we're talking about. Now these are vehicles that have a plug and can actually plug into the wall and get electricity that was generated on the grid. The plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, they have a battery-powered electric motor as well as an internal combustion motor. They have a little smaller of a battery pack than the full electric vehicles, but they can still go approximately 15 to 80 miles depending on what model you choose. And then after that's expelled and you run out of enough battery power, you will use the internal combustion engine that's powered by gas or diesel. So your range is not limited at all. You can continue operating on gas and electric as needed. The all-electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, they have larger battery packs because they rely solely on that electric motor to get you around. These are very efficient because they don't have the internal combustion engine at all. They can eliminate that totally, which helps on your maintenance costs, and that frees up space for a larger battery pack. You can get between 80 and 300 electric miles, depending on, again, the model you want to choose from for a variety of costs and features. Currently, New York State has a number of eligible vehicles, all the plug-in electric vehicles can get a rebate up to $2,000. So now is a great time to take advantage of the Drive Clean rebate here in New York State, as well as the federal tax credit. And there's a link here to all the currently available plug-in electric vehicles in New York State. Currently, there's just about 22,000 electric vehicles throughout the state. They are concentrated toward the larger areas of population in the larger cities throughout the state, and especially around New York City. The vehicles have been very effective. And when you're driving in the city, start and stop, you can recoup that energy, and you're not wasting gas as you're idling at all. So it's very efficient to drive around the city, and the adoption rates have been wonderful around these areas of the state. There still are probably about twice as many plug-in hybrid electric vehicles as battery electric vehicles in the state. And we continue to track these as the registrations increase approximately 6 to 11% each quarter. This continues to have a nice upward trend because of the rebates and because of the attractive features that EVs offer their owners. To charge these vehicles, you need to stop at a charging station. Majority of this is going to happen at home, but there's public opportunities to plug in as well. While you're traveling in a highway, you don't want to stop for too long, so that's where your DC fast charger would come in most handy. These chargers provide about 80% charge in 20 minutes. So you can stop in, get a really fast charge, and then be on your way in a half an hour as you stop to replenish beverages or whatever else you want to eat as well. And these are starting to come up on highways to encourage longer duration travel in electric vehicles. However, your most common charging station you'll find is the AC Level 2, whether at home or around town, as you need it. You can get 10 to 20 electric miles for every hour that these are plugged in. And the cost is much more affordable per charging port. The lower cost AC Level 1, these run off 120 volt supply, so they provide a little less power, but for overnight charging, they can be effective as well and save on some money. The charging times for a 30 kW battery electric vehicle, which was the older version of the Nissan Leaf, is shown here. So certainly your time to charge can decrease significantly with these fast charger or AC Level 2, but they do cost more money to install and operate. Those DC fast chargers, you will find them in cities where you have a lot of users wanting to fill up quickly, or between cities, so you can go from one place to another along the corridors. New York State has a number of these that have gone up on the New York State Thruway for people that are traveling throughout the state. The AC Level 2 stations you'll find workplace, you'll find for fleets, you'll find them around town for businesses, municipalities. Any place you might be stopped for 2 to 6 hours is a great opportunity to get a little extra electric charge and extend the range of your battery electric vehicle, or prevent your plug-in hybrid electric vehicle from having to turn over to gasoline. AC Level 1 stations, to save some money on the installation when there's long dwell times. If you're sitting at one place overnight or all day long at a workplace, sometimes these lower power AC Level 1 stations are suitable for those charging situations. And overlaying the current charging stations, these are the public charging stations on top of the EV registrations. You can see that there are a lot of concentrations around where the vehicles are, which are around many of the major cities throughout the state. And these continue to expand. We're seeing both the expansion of electric vehicle ownership and charging stations going hand in hand. For municipalities, looking at this new trend, this is up and coming. The transportation industry is going electric in all areas. light duty, medium duty, and heavy duty. Then there's many benefits around town. Electric vehicles, they have zero tailpipe emissions. We're not having gas stations. We don't need to bring in those imported fuels. So that's a benefit for the community and society where they are. But locally, as you get into it, EV drivers are population that tends to be tech savvy, eco-conscious. They're highly educated, and these are typically your entrepreneurs that you'll find start up small businesses and really get the economy going locally. So many municipalities see a benefit and are feeling a benefit from attracting EV drivers to their community. Now, as a planner or a planning board, there are certain things you can kind of do to influence and encourage EV adoption. A lot of it is through the installation of EV charging stations, and whether your own facility might not want to do it, but as you're helping others to put up new developments, there's a great opportunity to put in charging stations when it is low cost, when the construction is currently underway. And this is the main focus of our project, is giving you the opportunity and letting you know where it is a good opportunity to put in charging stations. Here are some EV clusters. This was a study done by WXY a few years ago, looking at really where are the key opportunities to put in charging stations, where are they going to get used. So these EV clusters, certainly downtown multi-use garages are great. Higher education, you'll find a lot of EV drivers there. Workplace is a huge encourager. When there's charging at work, EV drivers and employees there are twice as likely to consider it for their own transportation option when they're going to buy a car next. But for every setting, you want to look if there's a dwell time between 2 to 4 hours, easy access to power, and a lot of features here that are suitable for EV charging. These are opportunities in development when you really need to encourage and work with the developer to put in EV charging stations or make it EV ready for charging stations to be installed easily in the future. The considerations that you want to encourage them to think about or factors as they're thinking about putting them in is the location, where on the property, how to make it visible so everybody can use it. If you do it close to the electrical panel, then you have a smaller trenching distance, you have smaller runs for your electricity, and the cost can go way down, which makes it much more affordable. The charging station, which is also referred to as an EVSE, if you can mount it on a wall, then you don't have to do another structure. Oftentimes on the side of the building, your electrical run will be very short as well. But you need to look into permitting, who's experienced, and think about protecting these stations as well. The most damage that occurs is from vehicles hitting them. And there's a lot of best practices that have gathered and have done, putting charging stations on electrical poles to reduce costs for the installation is a good trend, and we've seen that be very effective. Here at Rochester Institute of Technology, they put the station between 4 spaces, so these cars can share. Once they're done charging, they can return it, but still stay in that parking lot, and it leaves room for other plug-in vehicles to come and use those charging stations afterwards. So when you're able to do this and install the charging station, or even make it the EV ready, which means installing conduit and making sure the electrical panel has enough suitability and capacity to put in breaker slots for it, you can save about 1/3 of the cost of the total installation. And that's significant because when you don't have this, you're going in, you often have to dig up pavement and then repave, you have longer runs. So please, whenever there is developments, we really encourage you to encourage and promote the use of at least making these sites EV ready in the future, if not installing them where it makes sense to do that. We've kind of developed a little guide here, kind of these best practices, lessons learned that we just talked about. So there's a checklist here, some questions, and as you go through this and you answer yes, it helps you decide if that new development, if the site you're reviewing or looking at is a good factor, is good to be considered for an EV charging station. And then again, we have additional information here about why each of these factors contributes to a good site for EV charging. So again, this is a document that is embedded in this resource. So if you click this box on the PDF, it will pull up this sheet and you can keep it as a separate resource or print it out so it's available as you're reviewing any new developments in your community.
We also want to encourage everybody to remember that bargaining, that electric vehicle charging stations can be considered a bargaining tool in negotiations for variances, given the public benefit that EV charging provides. So this is especially true for planning board members who are in a position of reviewing site plans. If the site plan doesn't include electric charging, but you think that it would be suitable, a suitable site for electric charging, you might want to consider using and negotiating for electric charging to be installed in exchange for another increase in density, reduction in parking, whatever it may be that might be beneficial to the developer to actually install electric charging at the site. Likewise, when reviewing site plans, if you're reviewing a building that is going after a LEED certification, STAR certification, Energy Star, Green Globes, it's suitable to either introduce electric charging station as an option for that building that will help them gain points towards those energy efficiency and sustainability programs that already exist. So now I'm going to pivot a little bit and to talk about some of the tools to facilitate electric vehicle adoption, and specifically planning and policy tools that are available to local decision makers, planners, and planning board members. Planning and policy tools of zoning, codes, permitting, parking, partnerships, and procurement can be used to allow, incentivize, require, or regulate electric vehicle charging stations. And so these are all tools that we have in our planners' toolboxes, and they can be used in different ways to clarify the rules around electric charging and electric vehicles, and all the way towards actually regulating the electric vehicle environment. And this is going to be very important as you start to see increased electric vehicle use in your own municipalities and towns. Zoning is the first tool that I want to discuss. Zoning is really powerful because it can set the environment that allows for electric charging and ensures that electric charging is not restricted. So zoning, one initial step that municipalities can take is to define electric vehicles and charging stations in appropriate land use context, to list electric charging stations in zoning use tables, and to review zoning ordinances to ensure that zoning and EV charging are permitted in logical locations. It can also be used to incentivize, and we've seen several towns and cities across New York State use zoning to incentivize electric charging by requiring that new parking lot developments or garages be pre-wired for installation of electric chargers. So what we're seeing in New York City, for example, is that all new municipal lots and garages are required to be 20% pre-wired for electric charging, meaning that they have to lay the conduit for new charging to be installed, but they don't have to install at this time charging stations. But this will greatly reduce the cost in the long run when there's demonstrated demand for the charging infrastructure. Zoning can also be used to require that electric charging be installed in logical land use context or forbidden from land use context where it doesn't make sense. There are several steps that municipalities and towns can take towards streamlining codes and permitting processes to ensure that the permitting fees are lower, that the administrative processes are smooth, and this really helps to encourage electric charging installations across the town. So they can also be used to set high-level design standards and accessibility and parking enforcement criteria, set standardized signage for electric charging stations, which is very important for indicating to EV drivers where they are allowed to park and charge, but also equally important to indicate to internal combustion engine or traditional vehicle drivers where they are not allowed to park or when they are not allowed to park in EV-only spots. Codes and permitting can also be used to require electric charging stations, again, by requiring conduit in new parking lots or requiring new residential or commercial or multi-family buildings to install the infrastructure to become EV ready, or by setting numerical or percentage-based goals to limit or to set goals for the amount of charging stations in new construction. And again, these resources at the bottom are links to best practices and research that have much more detailed information on siting and design guidelines for electric charging stations, sample codes for EV and EVSC, electric vehicle charging stations that have been adopted across New York State and other places in the United States, and then tips and best practices for streamlining permitting processes. Parking is one really powerful way to incentivize electric charging stations. One way that can be done is by providing preferential parking spots for EV drivers, and that helps to increase the visibility of the infrastructure and popularize and make the general public more familiar about what electric vehicles are, how they're driven. And it can also help encourage non-EV drivers to potentially purchase an EV vehicle if there's a space-constrained parking lot where there's always preferential parking provided for the electric vehicle. And when you're talking about parking and when you're considering parking for your municipality or your town, your building development, or your retail establishment, it's important to use standardized signage that helps to indicate EV-only spots for EV drivers, and then also indicate to non-EV drivers that they are EV restricted spots that they're not allowed to park. And then finally, partnerships and procurement can be a powerful way to help get electric charging installed in your municipality or city or town. Oftentimes the cost for installing charging stations can be prohibitive, and there are several ways to work with the private sector or the public sector to install charging stations, making use of incentive programs that already exist at the state and federal levels, or by establishing partnerships with the private sector to help offset the cost of the make-ready and actual equipment and installation. This resource, or in developing this resource, we spoke with several municipalities and towns across New York State of all different sizes to get examples of how they are introducing electric charging stations in their own town. And you can see here that the town of Otto has taken preliminary steps by defining electric vehicle charging station in their zoning code, whereas the town of New Paltz has taken things one step further. They have set EV charging parking space requirements in new construction They authorize planning board members to simplify the site plan procedure and they authorize planning board members to implement design standards and regulations for electric charging. These are all embedded case studies, documents. So in the PDF version of this presentation, you can click out on each of these case studies to get a more in-depth reading with sample code language for what each town, city, or county is doing with electric charging. And then we've also created action items, a list of action items for EV-ready communities. Simple steps that planners, planning board members, and local decision makers can take to ensure that your town is EV-ready. And these include some of the items that I already that we've mentioned so far, to simplify and streamline permitting processes, regulate charging station use, standardized signage, etc. There are a few other options outside of our planning toolboxes, outside of zoning, permitting, codes, partnerships, and procurement that can help encourage EV adoption. So if you're working outside of the planner's tools, there are still several options for encouraging electric vehicle charging stations. One powerful way to do this is through comprehensive plans. So incorporating EVs in your comprehensive plan or your sustainability plan can bring a city or town a great deal closer towards achieving both sustainability goals and transportation greenhouse gas reduction goals. Comprehensive plans provide guidance for regulation, guidance for development of the community, and help to create and enhance community assets. And there are several resources available that can both to provide funding for assisting cities and towns with developing comprehensive plans, but also giving sample language and examples of how electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging can be incorporated into those comprehensive plans. And we wanted to provide a few examples of cities that have done this. So New York City has set a goal of a sustainability goal for the city to reduce transportation greenhouse gas emissions by 44%. And that was set forth in the Plan YC. And electric vehicles are a crucial component for achieving sustainability goals. And they've also set EV readiness plan that details and helps to advance electric vehicle implementation potential through public outreach and raises EV awareness. The City of New Rochelle has also incorporated electric vehicles into their comprehensive plan and into their sustainability plan. And some of the recommendations that they've included include a green fleet initiative to have more electric vehicles as part of their city fleet, and to have more electric vehicle charging to support those fleet needs and general public needs. And executive action is another way outside of our traditional planning and policy tools that electric charging stations can be encouraged and promoted. So at the state level, Executive Order number 4, signed in 2008, set a procurement and agency sustainability program that helps to direct state agencies and public authorities to green their procurement processes. And there are several programs across New York State. Many of the resources are embedded in this presentation that give you more information on how your town or county can participate in aggregate purchasing programs for electric vehicles. And then at the county level, local executives really can take huge steps towards encouraging electric vehicle use. And we've seen this done in Ulster County, which is really a model in New York State for encouraging sustainability and electric vehicles as part of sustainability goals. And they have a sustainable green fleet policy that has a county-wide goal of having 5% of their fleet be green vehicles by 2020. And in 2016, they purchased and installed 9 charging stations on municipal lots across the county, and they purchased 6 electric vehicles and incorporated those into their fleet, and they had plans to purchase more electric vehicles and install more charging stations, all as part of taking advantage of funding that's available for green procurement in New York State. And then there are several programs and initiatives, both at the state level and at the federal level, that municipalities, towns, and counties can participate in to help offset the cost of becoming EV ready. So a few of those that can allow you to leverage funding for technology deployments include the Zero Emission Vehicles Program, Charge New York, and the Volkswagen Settlement Fund. Climate Smart Community, Clean Energy Community, and Clean Cities Coalitions all operate at the state level and have a wealth of knowledge and resources through their coordinators and funding available to help municipalities do things like streamlining administrative processes, funding for comprehensive plans and goals, and then also funding to help introduce electric vehicles. And then finally, one of the most powerful ways to encourage and promote electric vehicles is by demonstrating their use. So there are a lot of National Drive Electric Week is one example of how cities and towns across the state are demonstrating electric vehicles to the general public by having meetups where electric vehicle drivers with different models come and demonstrate and allow people to look at their vehicles, and some of them even allow people to test drive vehicles so that you can understand that what's the experience of driving an EV vehicle is like, how it compares to an internal combustion engine, and make better decisions or about how an electric vehicle may or may not fit into your daily commuting or workplace patterns. And then finally, leading by example, installing public electric charging stations in visible locations on municipal-owned lands, or at workplaces or organizations, and at retail establishments or in downtowns, really will go a long way towards helping to promote the infrastructure, but also helping to ensure that there's a cohesive electric vehicle ecosystem so that EV drivers can drive comfortably across the state without fear of running out of charge. And then there are special programs that may be appropriate depending on initiatives going on in your municipality, town, or county. So that concludes the presentation for today, and I just want to reiterate that this is a resource that was developed for NYSERDA and that has links out to much more in-depth information, websites from reputable sources that give you much more detailed information on best practices and case studies, initiatives, and programs across the state. And this document also includes embedded PDF files that give you more information on the plug-in and electric vehicles available in the state, electric vehicle charging station information, site selection guidelines, incentives, actions that your municipality can take to become EV ready, and case studies of relevant examples from across New York State.